And point number 3 says that Jesus revealed that the devil, quote unquote, the devil, the Satan, was manifesting as unbelieving Israel. Okay? So remember, the book of Revelation and also generally Christ's teachings were all parables. Okay? He said in Matthew chapter, or is it Mark chapter 4? Mark chapter 4. He said, all things concerning the kingdom are done in parables. Get? So when we read about the devil, when we read about the ancient serpent, and all of these things are personifications of real people, institutions, nations, depending on the context. You should be able to see and by now understand, or maybe you haven't looked at it this way, but try looking at this, trying to see when Christ or his apostles speak about the devil, or when they speak about Satan, understand that they are actually speaking about either a specific person or a specific group of people, or sometimes a nation, right? They are not really speaking about some, intelligent spirit demon. Or sometimes they are also speaking about an attitude, right? An attitude of resisting the gospel, or resisting God, or going contrary to God. All of these things are called, the devil are also called Satan, right? You have to use the keys that the scriptures give you to unlock the kingdom of heaven, unlock the parables that these things are written and spoken in. So anyway, John chapter 8 verse 44, Jesus revealed that the devil was manifesting as unbelieving Israel. John chapter 8 verse 44. So let's go to our Bible here now. John chapter 8 verse 44. And we read, it says there, Christ was speaking to the Jews, okay? And he said to them, you are of your father, the devil. All right? So in other words, they are sons of the devil. All right? And remember, the devil here is the false accuser. You are... So what were they doing? They were falsely accusing Christ. So he says, well, you are of your father, the devil, the false accuser. And the lust or the desires or the works of your father you will do. So he's saying, based on your actions, I am saying that your father is the devil, because you are doing the things that the devil would do. So Christ is identifying them as the devil, as the false accuser, because the father gives birth to the son, and the son is like the father, okay? And whatever the son sees the father do, the son does, okay? These are all principles that Christ talk about, okay? So basically, by telling them their father is the devil, he's saying they are one and the same as the devil, right? He says, he, meaning the devil, was a murderer from the beginning and stayed not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. So all of these things he's saying to them, there's no truth in you. There's no truth in you. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own, for he's a liar and the father of it. So he's the father of liars. So he's calling them liars. He's calling them false accusers. He is actually calling them the devil, the false accuser. Okay, so let's look at also, let's just jump back up here to verse 39 to see the principle that Christ is verse 38, sorry. He says, I speak which I have seen with my father. That's the principle, that the son does what he sees the father do. And he says, you do what you have seen with your father. So you see the spiritual principle there? So when the Bible is talking about the devil, it doesn't actually mean all the time this individual spirit, who we said this fallen angel. sometimes it's talking about an actual group of people. Okay? So they answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said to them, if you are Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. Notice again, what they were doing identified their father. And if their father was the devil, then that means they were doing the same thing that the devil would do. So the devil is actually manifesting as Israel. That's the point that Jesus is making here. He says in verse 40, but now you seek to kill me, a persecuting spirit. Good? A man who has told you the truth. So a persecuting spirit of those who are speaking the truth. Now, wasn't this happening during the time of John? Yes. This was happening throughout the book of Revelation. It was happening throughout the book of Corinthians, the book of Romans, all throughout the New Testament. You had the martyrs. Stephen was killed by these very same people. The Jews, right? Israel killed Stephen. He was the first martyr. Good? So he's saying that you are the devil. You are the one that is persecuting or will persecute those who preach the truth, because that is your father. That is the spirit that is guiding you. That is your ideology. Right? So if that is your ideology, that is your understanding, that is what you will do. So in this case, the devil also would be the ideology that they have. Good? So he says, you do the deeds of your father. Right? And that's how we get down to where he told them that their father is the devil and so on. Right? So let's go to... let's continue. Then said they to him, we be not born of fornication. We have one father, even God. So they were claiming God to be the father. But Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me. Obviously, because if Jesus, or since Jesus was the son of the Father, and they were claiming to be sons of the Father, then they're supposed to love Christ because he would be their brother. He said, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God. I did not come of myself, but he sent me. Good? So we see here that Christ identified the devil, the false accuser, identified the adversary as Israel. Right? So all of these things we need to take into consideration when we are reading the book of Revelation, because the book of Revelation was written in a specific context. And once you lift Revelation 20 or any part of the book of Revelation, once you lift it out of its context, is no way you could arrive at the truth. No way. Absolutely no way. Because you have lifted it out of its context. And then now, once it's out of its context, anything goes. Anything goes. You can say, oh, the devil is China, the devil is Russia, the devil is United States, the devil is the papacy, the devil is Protestantism, the devil is Islam. As much as they are different people in this world, they are different interpretations because people lift things out of their context. Once you keep the context, once you understand the context, it's very easy to see what's happening and what the book was speaking about. Okay? Let's look at Ephesians chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. Right? Ephesians chapter 2, verses 2 and 3, learning about this devil. Right? It says, wherein, okay, and he's speaking here to the Christians and mostly, remember, the early Christians were predominantly Israelites. They were remnant. Okay? So he's speaking to them and he says, wherein in time past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the spirit that now works in the children of disobedience. And when he was saying the children of disobedience, he was not speaking about the heathen people. Children of disobedience means children that disobey God. So who were the children who God expected to obey him? It was Israel. It was Israel that he had called, Israel that he had given his laws and commandments, precepts, statutes, judgments, and ordinances. And he told them to obey those things. Good? So because they failed to obey, they were children of disobedience. So this is a reference to Israel. And he was saying the spirit that works in Israel, that is the prince of the power of the air. That is the Satan. Okay? So he's saying the Satan is the spirit that is working in disobedient Israel. So Christ, the apostles here are confirming what Christ said already. And remember, the apostles are writing and they are speaking according to the revelation given to them through the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Christ. They are not making these things up and guessing what they're saying. They are speaking under the inspiration of Christ, the Spirit of Christ. And they are identifying Israel as having this spirit of disobedience, which comes from Satan, the prince of the power of the air, right? So what we are seeing in the New Testament, remember the book of Revelation is pulling concepts from everything that Christ had already been teaching through his ministry and teaching through the apostles' ministry. Yeah, it's pulling the understanding from there and putting it in a symbolic form and a personification form. Good? But it's the same message. Okay? It's the same message because it comes from the same author or the same origin, sorry. Good? Comes from the same origin, the Spirit of Christ. So we understand that the symbol or the personification, the dragon, the devil, the serpent, right? The accuser, the slanderer, the adversary are all different aspects and characteristics of Israel, which at that time was under the combined jurisdiction of the leaders of Israel, which were called the kings of the earth or the kings of the land, and of Rome. Israel was under a combined jurisdiction. That's why you read of the Caesars, you read of the governors, you read of the people like Pilate and Agrippa and all of these people. These were Israelite and Roman leaders combined, ruling over Israel. Okay? And these leaders were instrumental in attempting to shut down the preaching of the gospel in John's day. Good? So these were what, you remember these scriptures now, they had to be written in symbolic form just in case they got into the wrong hands. Okay? If you are writing against the authorities, you cannot come out plainly and say, this person is this, and you have to quote it. You have to talk about the Satan and the dragon and the devil and the serpent. Good? But the people to whom you are writing to, they understand what you mean. They know exactly who's the dragon you're talking about. They know who's the devil. They know who's the serpent. They know who's the Satan, the adversary, the enemy, the false accuser. They know exactly what the apostles meant when they were talking. So just in case they were discovered, these writings and these scriptures were discovered, these letters, the epistles of the apostles were discovered and fell into the wrong hands, those who read them, they would not be able to understand what they're actually saying, who are being identified in these epistles. Okay? So this is why it is written in such a codified form or symbolic form. But understand, the apostles and Christ identified Israel and more specifically, the leaders of Israel. They had Israelite leaders and they had Roman leaders of Israel. These formed generally the dragon.